Welcome to the Conditional Release Program, a podcast that delves into the netherworld of cults, crims, and con artists. We don't like these people and it shows. We believe the best way to expose them is to hold them up to a harsh light, point our index fingers in their general direction, and mock them mercilessly. Take them down a peg or two until they cease to exist in any other form than the shit on our shoes. I'm Jack the Insider, otherwise known as Peter Hoisted for tax purposes.
Well, hey Jack, long time no speak. How the kids going, mate?
What?
Well, yeah, I'm just checking to see how you are. I just got back from this awesome holiday in the Maldives, man. Oh, man, the fish there is so fresh. The water's so clear.
Okay.
Yeah, I've just been killing it recently. I started my own business. Can you believe it? It feels so good to be my own boss. I am halfway to Easy Street, man.
I don't believe that or you, Joel.
Yeah, how's work for you? I've been looking for some really keen, hard-working types who really just want to kick ass in the coming year, you know. What do you reckon?
Joel, don't fuck me around.
Nah, it's great. It's legit. It's passive income. It's super easy. Do you want in? I can send you the details.
You've never been to the Maldives, have you, mate?
Please buy some of these skincare products, Jack.
Multi-level marketing. It's a scourge on society that reduces people into pestering their friends and families to prop up their ill-fated pyramid scams. A machine where cash goes in and only sadness comes out. We've all been touched by it, and if you haven't, you surely will soon. Old friends messaging you with bullshit copy and paste sales scripts, pretending to give a fuck about your life and then trying to hawk you some shitty products. And more importantly, a bullshit dream of getting a lot of cash for doing very little on the backs of others, not realising, of course, that you are their immediate other. They're marked. Funny that.
Yeah. See, I never went to the Maldives. I actually spent the entire holiday period trying to sell skin cream-covered activewear at about a 300% markup. See, multi-level marketing, or direct sales, if you're in the game, is more than just an annoying hobby. It's a scam and it's a cult. People have seen their loved ones fall into this trap, often witness their financial and social downfall as they sit on thousands of dollars of overpriced shit in their garage they cannot move and frantically harass anyone that will listen about their doomed to failure business opportunities. Over 99% of people fail at multi-level marketing, I think within the first year or so. And the money that goes in just goes straight to the top of the pyramid.
Yes, it does, Joel. Look, it is a pyramid scheme, or as the Simpsons once famously said, it's a trapezoid. No,
yes, it's not a pyramid, but a trapezoid.
It's a pyramid run by soulless grifters. We're going to get into that later. But for now, we need to check in on the political wasteland that formed the past week of our lives in the Conditional Release Program's Weekly News. Kicking off the news this week, on Saturday, seriously pilled lunatics gathered as one or maybe 10 around the capital cities in the millions march against mandatory vaccination. I watched a bit of the live streaming, Joel, and in Sydney, they would have been flat out getting a couple of hundred together to stamp their feet and protest about something that's not actually happening nor planned to happen. Like reality, maths was never the anti-vaxxers' strong suit. Now, you gutsed out the live stream longer than ever I could, Joel. What the fuck are these people on about now?
Named after the Million MAGA March because pilled Australians have zero originality, the numbers expected are unsurprisingly unlikely to add up to 1 million.
No,
Despite
well short
this,
of a million.
We will see various anti-lockdown truth seekers taking a moment away from their truthy pursuits to inflate numbers and self-congratulate for going to a park with a sign on a Saturday. Top job, guys. Top fucking job. And while this rally is being held in a time where the plague is taking a sabbatical, it is still incredibly stupid to be attending this rally. And no, not for public health reasons. I don't give a fuck if these people catch COVID. It's because the entire premise is stupid.
Fucking dumb.
The COVID vaccine isn't mandatory. It's as simple as that. And while
mandatory,
maybe Qantas will give you shit for getting on a plane, but you know what? I want to sit next to you, plague rat. Fucking get off anyway. It's just a way of filtering idiots out of fucking society, and I fully endorse it. The millions who've received it so far are fine, contrary to the bullshit factory these fuckheads make up. All these nonsense about how the initial nurse who got it died and all this sort of bullshit. There's no microchips. The death numbers that anti-vaxxers bring to the table are transparently fake. And they're using the fucking vaccine adverse event reporting system, which basically anyone can add to. So anti-vaxxers have taken to it like flies on shit and just adding a whole bunch of random dead people to it. So they go, look, Look, there's dead people.
Yeah.
Where's the proof? Oh, I took a screenshot.
I believe everything I read on the internet. Yeah.
Oh, and it's just so annoying because there was this small period of time where that was almost true, and it's just these cunts ruin everything. Anyway, look, the COVID vaccine is not mandatory, and that's it. It probably should be, but that's it. Now, the people who thrive on this are the Informed Medical Options Party, the IMOP. And this guy, absolute genius in the live stream, covered in IMOP merch, goes up, and his main point is, and he was so happy to be saying this, was that they didn't seem to be getting heckled as much as usual from people on the street and passers-by.
not being abused, not having things thrown at them as much as
that's a victory.
Yeah.
Does that maybe tell you something? Maybe you're on the wrong side of history.
It's a small battle in the waging of the war. Yeah.
It's just so embarrassing. What is fucking wrong with these people? Anyway, look, the fact that he's aware of the fact that they are hated by the public, but he's just relieved that it seems to be decreasing. It just tickles me fucking.
They're going beautifully, yeah.
It's just so funny. But look, this is the usual kind of shit they come up with. They're fucking just, they're just oblivious to what's going on. But the weather really pulled in for the kids.
Beautiful day.
It was meant to be raining, and the sun came out of the skies like some sort of divine intervention, because they literally think that. They think, and several of them said this, that the weather cleared up because God is on their side. And look, what God even? I mean, just anyway. But look, I think it was a decent turnout. You disagree? You reckon it's a couple hundred? I reckon it was a couple thousand. I saw a few people there. I don't know. They kept on talking about how there was heaps of people there, which is the first sign there's not many people there. Because that insecure, oh, no, you're not fat. You're looking great. That's like a first sign that you're like 10 kilos overweight. This is my life right now, by the way. Yeah, diet's not working. So essentially, the signs there sucked. There are tons of signs about COVID being a hoax, usual dead brain shit. How the government's full of pedos, of course, baseless, but why not? And it's just all this QAnon, Q-adjacent crap. But heaps of signs about the future of the children, they're just basically using the children as a legitimacy shield for this malignant cause they're on. And there's tons of kids around, and they're not wearing any fucking sunscreen because they don't believe in sunscreen. Look, they're all fucking sunburned.
I just want to issue a warning to our listeners, particularly if they have children. These children that are turning up at the protests, they are infectious mills of preventable disease. I wouldn't let your kids anywhere near them. They're bound to be sort of cesspits of malaria and death. And so keep your kids away from them.
Yeah, there's not enough acronyms to describe the kind of disease these kids are harboring. But they got these little playgrounds to do speeches on the little stage they made, the little soapbox. And they're clearly written by their parents. It's these usual crappy lines, but with that it's a kid.
It's a kid who's an anti-vaxxer.
Nice. Oh, yeah. Oh, that kid's definitely an anti-vaxxer because mum is forcing them to be one. So that's charming. Get them young, lovely. I suppose.
Yeah.
Now, there's always going to be some random lunatics around. One random guy was just going around yelling that government is slavery. Okay, cool. What? Yeah. That doesn't make any sense. It's just a nonsensical statement. But the thing is, people love that sort of shit at these rallies because they're fucking morons. So, these people really are not sending their best. So speeches were, of course, really esoteric and weird. Lots of vague claims and misinformation. Lots of calls to action and laced with spirituality and religion. One of my favorite absolute spanners of the day based her whole speech around saying that lockdowns don't work because she was in France and the lockdown didn't work. Now, there's no sense of irony here. She's just standing there at a fucking public rally in a place that's used lockdowns to get cases down to basically zero. Yeah. And somehow all these maskless freedom lovers who are doing whatever the fuck they want because of the policies that have enacted this. And but in France it didn't work. How do you make that link in your head? How do you walk? And the crowd is loving it. They're cheering. And it's like, what are you talking about? And this was this other thing I really enjoyed. And I saw my friend Tom Ellis last night, and I told him this because he's a scientist, and I just love it's just such a beautiful thing that he hates scientists, loves science, but hates scientists.
Yeah,
and the crowd was like,
scientists.
Fuck
Let's bring one out right now. Let's tear his lab coat off him and rip into him.
Set him on fire! Oh, yeah. How do you like fire now, science bitch?
Science is great, but scientists, no.
The worst. I mean, so, yeah. So I can't rationalize that in my head.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things
there is no rationalizing in any sensible person's head.
I think the guy was a doctor too. I think he's like got a doctorate. They're handing him out like fucking lollies these days.
Yeah.
Oh, it absolutely just baffles me to think that these people have any kind of self-respect. So obviously these people are the general intellectual dregs of society. They're saying things like the vaccine changes your DNA and just all this complete misinformation. They either are too stupid to know is like completely false, or they know it's false, but it sounds good. And you know what? Like all is fair in love and war, like as if this is some sort of war. Anyway, look, I must say, watching the live stream and just doing a bit of people watching, it does seem like these people are quite nice. They seem like the kind of people that form a village and probably would give you a cup of fucking salt if you needed it across the road or something, but they're just really, really pilled. Yeah. And, they think they're doing the right thing, but that's how cults work. You've got this crowd of lunatics fueled by a misplaced sense of benevolent public duty, and they're just doing their best to, well, unfortunately, stop society from progressing, which, in their minds, is a good thing. You can't have progress. It's scary and dangerous. So, basically, these idiots have gathered in various locations around Australia. The real kicker here is the first campaign speech of one Pete Evans. Yes. We'll be looking at that later, and what will inevitably be a huge week in old politician Pete's life.
Huge week, Joel. If it had horns and a lot of fucking hair, I'd call it mammoth. But in other news, there's been movement. A great bowel movement, a great torrent of shit spray in our favourite lawsuits, the Dominion and Smartmatic suits. Companies in the voting machine business who are far from happy with the lies and liars that portrayed their core business as a Venezuelan shit show that could see an 8-year-old kid with some bad intent and Phillips head screwdriver become the President of the United States. Joel.
Probably a dramatic improvement of the status quo, but that's another story for another time. Look, we may need to just change this segment to lawsuit news because the litigation Schadenfreude is about to shift heavily, pivot directly into the Trump family's basket.
Straight through the front door.
Oh, absolutely. You're about to get a game of golf, except Donald Trump's head is the ball. Because old Donald is under constant legal fire from assailants left, right, and centre. Since he has left office, mostly the left are coming after him, and he's given them a million excuses. He has accepted, according to the Daily Beast and several other news outlets at this point, that he's basically going to spend the rest of his life battling civil suits and eating KFC, but he didn't say that. The latest in the line of lawsuits is from Benny Thompson, a Mississippi Democrat, who also named in the suit great company such as Rudy Giuliani, the Oath Keepers, as just a sort of general group, and the Proud Boys.
Oh, they're nasty.
Yeah. Couldn't think of better people to sue. I don't think they've got any fucking money, though, to be honest. Maybe they can just pay in guns. But I don't really know how you serve a group like this. Like you just sort of rock up to their clubhouse and give them the subpoena. But I do think that it's good to hold them to account because they have been absolute pests recently. And
worse than pests. Yeah.
And they're getting away with it. And I don't like it.
Yes, the suit relies on the idea that these idiots violated an old law from 1871, the Ku Klux Klan Act, when they attempted to halt the certification of Joe Biden's 2020 win. And I quote, the lawsuit alleges that Trump and Giuliani violated the Ku Klux Klan Act, which was passed in 1871 in response to KKK violence and intimidation, preventing members of Congress in the South during Reconstruction, the post-Civil War period, from carrying out their constitutional duties. A press release announcing the lawsuit said the statute was intended specifically to protect against conspiracies.
Sounds about right. I mean, I don't really know what kind of damages this is going to result in and the real, sort of black letter of the law, but it sounds pretty good. Ku Klux Klan Act, I mean, the Proud Boys, fuck you.
Yeah.
Oath Keepers, yeah, okay. Not white supremacist group, okay, cool, tell me more. But at the end of the day, it looks like Trump, a man who has been begging to be sued over the last 4 years, is getting his comeuppance rather quickly. It's only been a month since he left office, and he's just getting fucked on. And this is an asshole. This is a bully who has used courtrooms to harass and intimidate his business, political, and personal foes over the course of his entire life. Do not feel any sympathy for this fucking cockroach. He has abused the legal system to fuck with people using his giant wealth that he got from dad forever. So no sympathy. He's fucking scum. Now, this is great, though. MSNBC host Joe Scarborough has been discussing civil action against Trump as, for some bizarre reason, and, in very Trumpian style, he was saying repeatedly and apparently baselessly that Joe had murdered one of his staffers back when he was in Congress.
He certainly did hint at that, yes.
Yeah, okay. So it seems like a pretty open and shut defo slander case, but here's the catch. Trump might be too busy to sue. I mean, you've got to fit in his schedule. So Joe has said he's waiting to see how many lawsuits come up against Trump to see if it's worth bothering with. So where you've got people who have a fairly clear line at a few $1 million in damages, but they're mulling over whether to pick at your meatless corpse after this post-POTUS feeding frenzy, you've got to start looking at how much a gold-plated toilet seat's going to go on eBay. Because, otherwise, maybe consider selling Barron Trump to the Saudis.
Well, I don't know what you get for Barron. I don't reckon a whole lot. But anyway, in Dominion News, the other bloke that has been begging to be sued, Mike Lindell, is about to have a very, very shitty year. Lindell, after making his bizarre docu-movie, Absolute Proof, which we covered in last week's show, is being sued imminently. Lindell has claimed that this is a blessing, not a curse, as he gets the power of discovery to pour over Dominion's paperwork to see if his claims hold water.
And this is the thing. I think he actually believes his own bullshit. It's not the pale that this guy, who's clearly a grifter, is also a complete rube that just believes whatever he reads on the internet. I mean, he's got this sort of confidence you only find in American businessmen. And he thinks he's just going to blow the whole thing wide open. And he won't, of course. He's going to need a lot more absolute proof if he's going to survive this lawsuit. And he won't.
And Trump wannabe lawyer Ellen Wood, who's been begging to be sued, is now begging for money. He only found Christ 2.5 years ago, but speaks like he's been thumping a Bible all his life. How's he getting on, Joel?
Yep. Well, I mean, Linwood is having a shit of a time. His Bible thumping is highly reminiscent of a man who's seeing a career change come up and thinks televangelism could work for me. Already a bit of a fucking grifter. But as far as we know, his family's still not speaking to him, and he's moved to North Carolina to basically... No, fuck no. After he doxed his son. Put his bloody email address in his Telegram post saying, "Oh, my son's not talking to me, but maybe if you send him an email and encourage him to talk to me, maybe he'll come around." And then basically turned around and went, "Oh, that was a mistake. Can you please stop sending him emails?" He's upset. Whoa, what a surprise. So he's fled Georgia to North Carolina because, funnily enough, he's made some very important people in the state very upset with him.
Very, very cranky.
Very upset. The Bar Society there are trying to get him struck off. Pretty reasonable. And his bizarre decision to represent Sidney Powell in a lawsuit he's about to be a defendant in just blows my fucking brain.
It's a real mind-boggler. It's a real mind-boggler. And speaking of Sidney Powell, the law woman who said she was going to release the Kraken but never actually did. How's she getting on, Joel? How's she travelling?
Well, she's probably not sleeping very well. But you see, Dominion recently sued the truth giver Sidney Powell for $1.3 billion. And Smartmatic has now sued for $2.7. So that's really adding up. If she has a Kraken on hand, I'd say now is a really good time to release it.
Now, that's a tidy $4 billion she's on the line for. And at times like this, she'd be wise to have a feel down the back of the couch just to see what's there.
Yes, well, she should do that while she has a couch, because that thing is going on fucking eBay. She is getting liquidated, but maybe it's going to go on Facebook Marketplace.
Well, speaking of Facebook, Joel, it looks like they turned Australia off on Thursday.
The news ban, big news,
Facebook,
but hilariously enough, I can't find any news on it because I can't get news on Facebook.
I only get my news from Facebook. Well, of course. The tragic thing is that a great many people do, particularly young people. But yes, they turned it all off on Thursday.
They did. And it's very, very funny. People on Telegram are saying how this is what it feels like to be a conservative. Because, we're getting silenced all the time. But realistically, what's happening, this is like a huge, huge goal for them. Because mainstream media can't be posted on Facebook anymore, so their misinformation posts can't be debunked by fake news readily saying, here's the reason why you're a fucking idiot. Here's the receipts. Yeah. So pure lunatics are just going to have a field day with this. Like, they're just speaking unopposed now. So thanks, Facebook. You've once again radicalized everyone.
Fucking idiot, Zuckerberg.
One thing that I really liked, and I don't think they had the foresight or the general sort of nous to know this is incredibly funny, but news has been banned from Facebook. But in further proof that Avi Yemeni is not a journalist, Rebel News has not been banned from Facebook under the news ban. And they've got news in their name. But Facebook just doesn't think you're news. Guess what? No one else thinks you're news either, you agitating fox. So we're banned on news. But Craig Kelly's fine. Facebook, famous for screaming before they can't moderate their platform, they turn news off overnight. The fireys are gone. The charities are gone. The Liberal government, who are just famous for not consulting with anyone their legislation impacts, appears to have delivered a real turd to the House. And Labor, the fucking spineless cowards, have completely surrendered and supported the bill, probably terrified of the fucking Daily Telegraph at the next election, which is going to slash them anyway. It's just torture. It's like it's the biggest bootlicking move. Like, I'm sorry, but you're always going to get slapped by the Telegraph. They consider it sport. So after it sailed through the House, they had the temerity to say the government should amend the bill. You should have amended the bill, you spineless fucking cowards. You should have actually consulted with tech companies as opposed to rushing this dog shit fucking bill through.
Look, I have another way of looking at this, Joe. Look, the government's bill might be so bad that it looks like it was written by a room full of bonobos chained to typewriters. But, and here's the big but, this looks a lot like the shenanigans of music share websites 20 years ago. Google did, but they always do, pay up rather than have a blue. Zuckerberg, on the other hand, pressed the big red button in his office which said, unfriend Australia, and on cue, 20 greasy men in their underpants turned a great big wheel, pushing this country to the edge of internet oblivion. Charities, government and non-government info services during a fucking pandemic, if you don't mind, were all shut down. Support and advocacy groups too. Not bad from a company that spent much of the last 10 years saying they can't control or curate what was on their fucking websites. We can't get rid of the Nazis because we just don't have the cash and the wherewithal to do the editorial. It's not as simple as the old days of swiping musicians' IP for nothing, but the fact remains you have to pay for fucking content. Journalism isn't cost-free. It costs a lot of money, in fact, and the big tech companies have been getting a pass for a fucking long time. At least sit down with the government, negotiate, Zuckerberg, and get on with it. And that's our cue to get on with it too. Get on with this. It's the Betfair Trump punters, and they're looking like they've been picked up and thrust into a world of shit, just quietly.
Our friends in the Betfair Trump Punters Fraud Exposed group are still posting some serious copium. It's an absolute hotbed of conspiratorial bullshit because since putting their entire life savings on a high odds bet after the votes were actually counted, and then, of course, bizarrely demanding their money back. There was election fraud. Oh, Trump's still in office. It's a fucking, it's all bullshit. So it takes a real stretch at this point to justify their belief that it's simply a matter of time before the whole thing's blown out of the water and they get their winnings. And one of the ways that they've justified this in their bizarre, pill-addled minds is that Joe Biden is working from a movie set, which has been built and designed by Castle Rock Entertainment. Like, the one with the lighthouse logo. It's so bizarre. They just randomly chose Castle Rock Entertainment. Like, did they pick it out of a hat?
The set, I tell you what, the production designer's done a wonderful job of the Oval Office.
It's really not bad.
Very compelling. Yeah.
It's very good. But these guys are so fucking predictable. It's always a body double. They're always at Gitmo. And there's always a fucking film set involved. The moon landing, Biden, it's always a film set. Crisis actors. Just get a new gimmick, fucking dipshits. But that's the state of the Telegram group. The Facebook group, much funnier, less sad. In my opinion, at least. You see, the group on Facebook has just turned into a slinging match of trolls laughing at their misfortune and their piss-weak attempts to defend their bizarre position. It's low-hanging fruit, sure, but they really do seem to be enjoying just sticking the boot in and just having a go.
I get the feeling. And do we think some of the trolls might be listeners of ours, Joe? We might have directed them there.
It's quite plausible. Now, do not mention the show while fucking with these people. We will get death threats. It's guaranteed that we'll get death threats. So do it under the guise of maybe working for Betfair.
Only because that's the thing. Like you must. Yes.
Yes, because it is pretty funny. See, it is fun to watch, especially when one of the punters accuses someone who clearly doesn't work for Betfair or working for Betfair. Like, as if part of Betfair's grand plan is to send a bunch of undercover operatives into their Facebook
in the thrall of big punt.
Shit.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. Big punt's fucking with us again. Yeah, okay. Thanks, genius. So this is, of course, usual sort of paranoid thinking, but it's clever. So essentially, Betfair send these undercover operatives to lower morale in the ranks and make them think that maybe their open and shut class action lawsuit will fail. Maybe they'll give up. But no. No, they're not listening to any of these Betfair operatives. They know better.
Who don't exist.
Strong case here. They can get their money. God is on their side. That's why the weather's so nice today. It's too fucking hot today. It seems like about 10 people are still paying attention to the Facebook page, and about 7 of them are there to take the piss out of them. But the Betfair Trump Punters Fraud Exposed group and this segment in the podcast are on borrowed time.
Yes,
it's starting to get a little bit sort of dire and just sort of sad and boring. The class action is clearly never going to make it to a courtroom, and most of the people involved are starting to know it. The bizarre ringleader of this Finton Dunn is desperately holding on to relevance, but there's only so much you can do to drag this out. Look him up. It's just everything about this.
Yeah, very, very strange human being. They are still holding out for March 4th, but after that, I think that's it. Most of them are going to pack up and move on. And by pack up, I mean sell their homes. Poor bastards. Poor, stupid bastards.
Yeah, we will keep you posted, as is our duty. But I think this story is coming to a close. A very sad, defeated close.
I have to agree, but it's time to move on to a segment that strips away, denudes important topics and leaves them shivering in their underpants while we get out the anal probes and get right up them and stay up them until we get some fucking answers. That's right, listeners. It's time to have a look up the Jaxie of the multi-level marketing industry in our deeper dive.
I've got to open this one with a cowardly disclaimer. I've known and loved and still do many people who've been involved with MLMs, including family members. This is not a direct attack on you. I absolutely promise. Some people just like a product and sell it for a bit of cash. This is a boy. Or maybe they run a salon or store or something where they stock the products, a few little things here and there. That's not evil. What we're going into is the cult side of MLM, the cult of selling dreams.
Yes, Joe, we know you hang out with lunatics, but I don't want a bar of this nonsense. Multi-level marketing companies are pyramid schemes that manipulate, deceive, and ultimately do anything they can to relieve you of your hard-earned cash.
Yes, this is true. They use some pretty scummy tactics, and they make very dubious claims, really bizarre claims.
Now, we've made ourselves pretty clear about how we feel about misinformation, and if you want a hotbed of bullshit claims of how to cure anything under the sun, look no further than a range of MLM products and a desperate lunatic trying to flog them by any means necessary.
Yes, and look, so I think most of our listeners are across what an MLM is, but for those who are lucky enough not to, it is a pyramid-shaped organization, to put it nicely. It's not a pyramid scheme as such, as pyramid schemes don't actually sell anything, but merely involve convincing people to gamble their money and get others to do the same. The most famous of these is the airplane game, where you buy a ticket to get on the plane. And if you want more details, Google it. But basically, it's a Ponzi scheme where if you recruit people, you get some percentage of the take. So you put your money in.
Often run by very, very serious criminals with guns, yes.
Yes. Well, that's what the logical conclusion is, isn't it?
That's right. Happened to a mate of mine. He went down there with his money, and he was put on the plane, but just as a passenger. And he waited a few more times, and he put his money down each time, and they just roll around. It's almost like they go, and now we have the crew members, and that's when you start earning money. And this guy, he said, it's my turn to be on the crew, and the guy just walked over and just showed him the gun in his shoulder holster and said, I don't think so, mate. That was the end of that.
Yeah, so essentially it's a scam.
That's pyramid selling. That's technically, it is highly illegal, and you go to jail for doing it.
Yes, and so you should, because it's scummy shit. But people did very well in the 80s and 90s, and, the people at the top know that it's a scam.
Yes.
And the people they, convinced to join them, it's just rubes. It's very sad. But these things have also resurfaced recently, I found out, just doing a bit of research. Yes. It's called the Loom game, and they're doing it with kids. all over Instagram and social, and you've got $100 buy-in, and it's just the same old trick, and they're just getting a different demographic. It's insane. This fucking beer's going nuts.
Yeah, so the MLM schemes or scams aren't selling hot air, aren't selling nothing, which is the definitive pyramid scheme. But they are often doing something very similar. It's often some kind of nutritional supplement like a protein shake or vitamins. Then you have skincare products and the rest. But the thing that really defines MLM products is that they are always several times the cost of an equivalent product, and they always have insane claims as to what these products will do. Oh, no, that vitamin C is not bioabsorbed like this one is. Mm-hmm. No, it's all just expensive piss. They know it at the top, but they peddle the lie so the sales keep rolling in.
Yeah, and look, some of these products aren't completely shit, but at the end of the day, if someone has to use big words and grandiose claims to sell something, you might want to have a look and just get a second opinion on whether the pocket-sized device will make you live forever at the low cost of a couple of grand. But even then, it's not the shelling of products that makes MLM evil. Selling stuff is pretty normal. Having a profitable side project is not inherently bad. What makes MLM evil is the methods employed to perpetuate the pyramid.
That's right.
The tactics the company insists you use to get more recruits. The way they sell a dream, passive income, you'll never work again. Buy your boss. You're the boss.
You're the boss, yeah. But
reach your potential. Buy a Lamborghini. It's all possible. Just get people in your downline to sell some skin cream and you'll be holidaying in France by next year.
Pandemic permitting. But of course, it's all complete bullshit, Joel. Very few people, if any, make it that far. These ruthless pricks target women looking to spend more time with their kids, or those who are stuck underneath the glass ceiling with a seductive claim of being a quick millionaire. Spending your days by the pool on a secluded island doing a few hours of work a day, but living the absolute dream. But over 99% of people that get involved with MLM, multi-level marketing schemes, fail. They don't include that in the sales pitch, do they?
No, it kind of takes the sheen off things, doesn't it? It's all about living your best life and having a laptop lifestyle instead of being stuck in a cubicle, because apparently everyone that works is in a cubicle.
Stuck in a cubicle, yeah.
Oh, yeah, just, that's because these people, like, half of them probably never had a job anyway. Like, this is their idea of normal work. But the appeal of setting your own hours and working from home has been a real lure to people over the years, especially ones who are trying to build a family and, fighting the never-ending list of demands the economy makes upon us. So it's like, it's kind of reasonable. But that appeal has probably dwindled a little bit since COVID has reminded us that offices are pointless. And, if you're going to just sit at your desk all day, you can do it at home. So bless the plague for that. But this is a digression because the issue here is that MLM shysters will sell you the dream. The dream of a lifestyle that doesn't actually exist.
It doesn't exist. The reality is that you are going to try desperately to sell overpriced shit to your friends and family. And failing that, you are going to try to sell them the dream. With multi-level marketing, the real money is getting others on board. There's your pyramid. And while you can do okay by selling a few products to a few mates, there's no Lamborghini in flogging skincare products at a 30% markup and getting others to join the business. Well, that's really some dirty business right there.
Yeah, well, some of our listeners will have seen or experienced this. They call them Humbots on the internet, which is actually quite a funny term and very loaded. If you look it up, there's some pretty funny stuff, lots of anti-MLM groups. But it's a message from an old friend out of the blue asking how you are.
Oh, there you
His
go.
friend's doing really well. They're kicking goals. They've just started their own business. They're on top of the world. They sell their life with a social media profile full of amazing times, fine dining, holidays, and this bullshit sense of freedom. And it's all thanks to their new business, the MLM.
Yeah.
But it's not a business. It's a job.
Yeah, that's the shtick, isn't it? They're just reciting a shtick that they've been given.
Yeah, it's basically a script. And, it's a script that's been very well considered over time to suck people in, and it has no issue with the truth. It's just not an issue. But, you see, essentially you're working for a company, you have a manager, your upline manages you, and then you have a boss, which is the MLM company. And they can decide what level of salesperson you are, which is, the more the order, the higher the level, the bigger the margins, the stronger the praise you get. You get a big pat on the back if you do well at this game, which some people really need. A lot of people don't get a lot of positive reinforcement, and MLM firms are all about positive reinforcement, even if it's just a scripted email saying, well done for selling thousands of products. But the thing is, just because you're ordering a shitload of stock doesn't mean you're doing well. A lot of people wind up ordering tons of crap, some of which have expiry dates, in order to maintain a level in the company. Especially if there's a like there's a social sort of thing with it you're doing with your friends, and you say, "Oh, well, I'm a diamond executive." Well, you've got to keep that shit up. Which, if you're not selling, you're storing.
It's not just one off. So there's a lot of garages full of a lot of shit. That people have just had to store there and have really no prospect of selling, and after a while goes out of date anyway and has to go down the tip.
Yep. Apparently there is a huge subculture of MLM clearance sales where people who are just basically on the verge of financial ruin who bought up all this shit in order to get some sort of special or some sort of thing they got sucked into by the firm, and they wind up in thousands of dollars of debt with a garage full of trash.
Yeah, that's right. And multi-level marketing firms seem to have two targets: people that need money, and that's almost everyone, and women. Yeah. Vulnerable people who need to just get ahead to relieve some pressure on their, household budgets. The people that can afford the least to have a garage full of worthless shit and $15,000 in high-interest credit card debt. MLM firms rely on the sunken cost fallacy, which is where someone has put up a bunch of time and money into something. And as it fails, inevitably in the case of an MLM venture, they double down to attempt to recoup their investment. But this, of course, just incurs more debt and more misery as they not only rack up stressful debts, but they also come to the realisation that the dream is never going to come true. There is no Lamborghini in the garage. There's just shit.
Just a whole bunch of fucking
and all those fanciful plans they made are total horseshit. It's amplified by people that make huge life choices in order to facilitate this lifestyle change and increased income. People's lives are ruined by MLMs, and the people that run them are all too aware of this, and yet they continue to pull people in to their failure factories just to make a buck off people that can't afford it. The more you look at it, the more you really dislike the people that run these companies.
Yeah, there is a very special place in the shunting yards for the executives of MLM firms. They're trapping people into the dream is only the start. These fuckers want to keep them in. And one way to do that is, surprise, surprise, cult tactics.
Yeah.
MLMs will hold conferences where they promise to help their members make that money, bridge that gap, and see the dream come to life.
Yes.
Most people who attend these things, because unsurprisingly, they're failing miserable in this business venture, and they're looking for some kind of edge to get that new life they were promised. They just need to try a bit harder. What they get is a huge flashy show by a charismatic cult leader and a bunch of consultants that use sketchy NLP tactics and a set of techniques to convince people that if they aren't successful in the venture, they're not trying hard enough. It's not a training weekend, it's indoctrination. One of the most cult-like techniques they use is to insist that any friends and family that try to dissuade you from pursuing your new MLM venture, cut them from your life. It's textbook cult shit
right there. Yeah.
They'll call them haters, label them as jealous, and they label them as a thing, I fucking hate this term so much, dream stealers. A dream stealer is someone who wants you to fail. Basically, they might be someone very close to you, but they're motivated by jealousy, and you must cut them out of your life. You don't need haters. This is just beyond the fucking pale. And this is not
classic cult behavior.
And this comes from the top. This is in training manuals and shit. The videos they have. They have it's despicable. So essentially, imagine thinking that hawking skincare creams was more important than your friends and family. But they pump people full of this bizarre hopium and turn them into friendless sales zombies. And when it all comes crashing down, just like the QAnon that told their families to fuck off in wait for the Great Awakening, they'll come back with their tails between their legs and ask for forgiveness and probably some help paying down their debts. I mean, that's pretty fucking sad.
And speaking of QAnon, we had the curious case of Pete Evans being dropped by doTERRA, the essential oils MLM, due to his Nazi leanings. And while it's not exactly headline news that companies that used Evans as an ambassador were dropping him like hotcakes, this one did a huge backflip once they realised how completely pilled their members were. The doTERRA backflip came very quickly, as their Facebook page was full of angry pilled idiots that were cancelling their memberships to support Pete. doTERRA
Yeah.
made the same, that made the innocent mistake of assuming that their clientele drew the line at supporting neo-Nazis and were wildly mistaken. And this leads me to believe that the incidence of pilled lunatics in the MLM scene must be huge. And it makes sense. There's a certain gullibility in joining an MLM. And this isn't to insult anyone who has dipped their toe in the pond. I know people who have joined up and given it a crack who are good people. But let's face it, get-rich-quick schemes are built on the power of suggestion, and those who fall for them are gullible rubes. And so, of course, this, QAnon. We're talking cults here.
Yeah, there's massive crossover there. Like, when it comes to the kind of susceptible person, the kind of person who will believe anecdotal claims on face value because they sound compelling. They'll believe something because it's on a picture of a puppy dog. These are the sort of people that are primed for MLMs. And, of course, as we were saying earlier, those who are a bit vulnerable and feeling like, maybe it's their chance to get ahead. The kind of people who have all sorts of issues in their lives, and this just compounds them.
Just extend that. I mean, if you believe the MLM pitch, you'll pretty much believe anything, right?
Yeah.
So this is why we're talking about gullible people and how gullible people can quickly get into lifestyle choices that are much, much worse. If you're an MLM rube, it's no great leap to start thinking that, the world really is run by a cabal of Jewish bankers.
Yeah, that's it. And, of course, once the MLM cleans you out, then, of course, you need something to blame. And you can't blame yourself. That just makes your head spin. So
cabal of Jewish bankers,
It's looking pretty convincing to me.
Yeah, there you go.
And there's also there's a huge religious crossover, most in the States, but there's MLMs in the States. There's one called 31 that flogs handbags and purses and all these sort of Bible-inspired products. It's hugely based around faith. This is this thing where, they'll take fucking anything to get an edge on you. And while having, like a 31 MLM in your church where you buy and sell a few handbags and things like that, like I say, it's really not a big deal. If you just doing a little bit of this, is just a bit of cash on the side, a bit of fun. But I was listening to a podcast, The Dream, and they have a 31 person, an ex-31 person on there, and she works very, very hard for very little return. And I think it stops being fun after a while. And these things don't need, they've got the dildo parties, right? Sex toys. And it's like a Tupperware party with sex toys. And sex toys, you got to go to skeevy places to buy them, or you buy them online and they come in nondescript boxes. Yeah, and it's all a bit of a sort of dry thing. The girls get together, they have a few wines, they can look at the toys and have a bit of a laugh. And at the end of the day, feel quite open about saying, I'll have one of those, please. They're a bit expensive, but sex toys are expensive. I mean, that's just the way things are.
That's right. I don't think I've never, my experience of that sort of operation is you're not paying over the odds. You're not paying. Not
really, no.
Yeah, you're
and
not
no
paying
one's
huge
there
markups.
Selling you a
These
dream.
things tend to be expensive, as you say, and at least you're buying them with some sort of sense of personal connection rather than ordering them from a Chinese online company. And
it's wholesome. That's the thing. And look, if you went to one of these parties and you thought, oh, I could give this a crack. Okay, there is an upline and there's a downline, and your mate will make some money off your sales, and that's the whole pyramid scheme thing. But at the end of the day, it's something that you can do enjoyably, and it's not the same kind of thing with the Herbalife and these American companies that just absolutely just pump people with this sort of bullshit false hope, and then take as much money from them as possible. It's just morally
and the religious link is a really practical one too, because they know that these people will be attending church where they are pre-pandemic and a lot during pandemic, nevertheless, are still filled rooms of potential customers.
Yeah. It's a fantastic angle. It's that sort of Steve Martin in Leap of Faith. Yes. You can make a good buck out of religion if you just want to make people work for it.
The Pentecostal movement in the United States is all about that. Making as much money as you can. If you're a leader, if you're just sitting in the pews or watching online, you're forking out money. So there are some similarities there. But that's the reason they're saying, well, we know that you're going to sit in a church with 100 or 1,000 people sometime, and that you can go and grift them.
Yeah, it's a fertile market. And the thing, like 31's actually run by a woman, but when I Googled several of these MLM companies, unsurprisingly, it's men at the top.
Yeah.
It's men at the top
Almost
targeting
invariably.
women. And it's that thing of, it's just got that, like, can we stop? Like, I'm not going to go sort of full feminist on this one. All I can say is, can we just stop harming women and, like, finding new and innovative ways to just screw women over? We could probably ditch this one. And I think there is something uniquely male about cult tactics.
Leaving them in a world of unmanageable debt.
And selling them a dream that'll never come true.
Yeah, exactly right.
Fully using the glass ceiling against them to then call them boss babes and fucking, give them this sort of weird fake encouragement to do something that is inevitably going to harm themselves and their families. Like, fuck that.
Yeah. And there's really a strong crossover, isn't there? In the wellness sort of industry here.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. And that ends up being Q as well.
Yeah, or you can end up in queue very, very easily from getting into that moment. But here's the idea that if you are ill, if you're not feeling 100%, whatever, if you want to improve your health and well-being, hook up to this. And that's another sort of terrible exploitation of people.
And there's often an angle of, like, what are you doing wrong sort of thing. If you're sick, you've done something wrong. That's a big wellness trait that's really been amplified recently.
Yeah.
It's that thing of, like, if you got COVID, well, are you eating badly? No, I caught a bus with a sick person, you fucking gronk. But, like, that's the thing. Like, at these rallies, they've got all these signs saying, our immune system is built to do this. Pete Evans there saying food is medicine. I mean, look, if you have a good diet, you're probably going to get sick less. You're probably not going to die as young. That's pretty obvious stuff.
It's not quite how infectious diseases spread, by the way. I mean, you can eat caviar on those little toast triangles all your fucking life, but it's not going to prevent you from getting an infection if someone is infectious and you come in contact with that person.
Yes. Yeah. Like,
and we know with COVID,
don't get coughed on.
If you do have some underlying health issues, you are more vulnerable, but just more vulnerable, not absolutely vulnerable while others aren't.
Yeah.
This again, when we get into this multi-level marketing stuff, if you've used Facebook or social media somehow to inform people, your friends and your family, that you're suffering from an illness, you'll find that, some of these grifters will latch onto this and start pumping people who are unwell, who are going
vulnerable
through really horrible treatments to become better, to become well, and they're getting hammered by some fuckwit flogging wellness shit.
Yeah, that's really that leads back to our medical misinformation episode where you've got people making these absurd claims, and it's almost a bit like the MLM made me do it. Like, this is what they encourage, basically, to sell your shit at any, by any means.
By any means. And I mean, look, if you've got a garage full of this shit and you come across a mate who's saying, look, I've just been diagnosed with cancer, and then you decide, oh, well, I'm going to hit that guy up because he might want to use some of my wellness shit that I can't flog.
Yep.
And apply all that sort of guilt on that person. I mean, what sort of fucking ethical fucking vortex would you have to be living in to even consider doing something like that? And when you are desperate and when you're on the sort of bottom level of this pyramid, you'll do those sorts of things. And it's fucking hideous.
It is. And it's not necessarily bad people doing it in a lot of ways. It's people who have been basically driven toward this point, and it becomes normalized. It's, these are the sort of things that they discuss with each other. Oh, and they put it in nicer terms. They'd say things like, because they think they're doing their mate a favor.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is, and this is something I've heard, by researching this episode, and you see a lot of chat logs online, so much anti-MLM material on the internet, it is a hotbed of it. And people who basically say not only, and this is where it goes back to the last episode, the episode of medical misinformation, not only will this, Herbalife shake, sort of cure your cancer or whatever, but you shouldn't do chemo.
Yes,
Just
look,
have the shake.
We've seen that, medical
Just have the
misinformation
supplement.
episode, and
Yeah.
afterwards, don't use this, eat these whole grain foods and all this sort of bullshit, right?
Goji berries and shit.
Yeah, if anyone actually tells you to discontinue your chemotherapy, you put the phone down on that fucker's ear straight away. I mean, because these people, whether they're nice people who've been duped or whether they're rubes who are just being dragged around by the nose by forces beyond their control, I mean, what they've already taken that leap to say, well, we will treat our friends as commodities, as markets.
Yeah, they do. And that's sad. That's the ultimate thing about this is that it's just sad. You've got these friendships, relationships, families that are just nothing but like marks. And the sort of tactics used, the sort of manipulation, that sort of like, if you really love me, you'd buy a starter pack. There's all sorts of shit going on. And at the end of the day, it's not even like, it's not even the person. They're not their own boss. They are being manipulated by a larger organization that is using them for a profit. So at the end of the day, I would say
marketing. What it does is take your relationships that you've nurtured, relationships that you value, and turn them into markets, into money makers. It's just about the most disgraceful thing I can think of. Joel, give me some names, give me some addresses and a rundown of their usual movements and we'll get on. They are scumbags and shitheels.
Yes, I'm not one for vigilante justice, but there's always an exception to the rule.
Frontier justice, I can't see any problem with it, although I don't encourage it.
No, God forbid. No. We love you, just like Trump. But look, speaking of Trump, if there's one man always looking for a business opportunity, it's our dear friend, Eric Trump. But the problem with him is that whenever he sees a sign that says, earn big money, work from home, he never really knows where home is. He's a little bit transient or just sort of confused. But he needs to earn his keep because his dad's about to get cleaned out and his allowance is on the line. Will he be okay? Maybe. No, of course he will be. Our Eric bounces back like a bastard on Father's Day.
Terrific Eric Trump news this week, Joel. Eric Trump has got a job. That's right. Eric Trump, the good-looking boy who was gainfully unemployed for the best part of 4 decades, eking a living out of sales of Trump wine, 6-pack of Trump purple piss for $1,280, packaging and handling extra. Eric has got himself a job all on his own. Eric, who is a good-looking boy, besides that nasty case of tungiitis he's got, a lot of fleas have laid their eggs subcutaneously on his face. It's very red, looks very sore, and is incredibly infectious. But undeterred by the hideous facial scarring, Eric has shown the sort of gumption, the sort of get-up-and-go, real initiative. The Americans call it moxie, the kind of moxie that once saw Eric pinch a bit of cash from a charity for bludgeon kids who sit around on their asses with their hands out looking for free money just because they've got a bit of cancer. Yeah. Now, according to the Post-Star, a very fine newspaper in the great state of Texas, who managed to get to print despite the power blackouts this week, reported, and I quote, Eric Trump, the son of former President Donald Trump, was in Lake Placid with his family last weekend to officiate the wedding of 2 Trump Organisation employees at the Whiteface Lodge Hotel in Lake Placid. Giovanna Parolo and Mike Vergara were married Saturday with Eric Trump at the altar. And I know our listeners will join us in wishing the happy couple all the very best. I know you've got a little lady in your life, Joel, and things are going very well there. Not for me to interfere, of course, but all I'm saying is what better way of saying I do than saying I do in front of Eric, who's clutching a Bible he hasn't read. Of course, we all know where this is going. And to be frank, and I want to be serious for a moment, there isn't a whole lot of marital bliss between Melania and the Great Orange One, and this has led to ugly speculation of divorce. We all know it's only a matter of time before the Donald gives Melania the flick or vice versa. Sad news, terrible news, and all too common in this day and age. But ultimately, love must win out, and so when the Donald remarries, he is going to have to scale down a bit this time. I'm thinking possibly the a hustler home girl of 1996, a lovely lady with a heart of gold who lives in a trailer park outside Trentwood, Ohio, a Trump state, by the way. Just imagine when the Donald and his new belle walk down the aisle, only to see Eric peering over the Bible he hasn't read, saying, well, we all know what he'd say. Love you, Dad.
Love you, Dad.
Oh, what a scene. Not a dry trouser in the place. Viva l'amour, viva Eric.
Oh,
but we can't stay fixated on Eric and romance and all the beauty in this world, because it's actually a big, horrible world, a vicious world that takes no prisoners and routinely kicks the shit out of the righteous, the well-meaning, a world that undervalues destructive narcissism. And that's right. It's the week in Pete Evans.
Ooh. It has been a huge week in Pete Evans. One of the biggest, because it started off with a real fucking bang. It finally happened. Pete got banned from Instagram.
Yes.
It's about time too. He's joined the ranks of RFK Jr. in the dustbin of mainstream social media history. His account is now mere space dust, and it is for the betterment of the world. I mean, nothing of value was lost. So, in a very mopey post on Telegram, Pete explains, my close to 300,000 person account on Instagram just gone because I reposted the story from Project Veritas on Mark Zuckerberg about DNA and mRNA vaccine information.
Just because of all those lies that I spread.
Oh, yeah, just because I'm a fucking half-wit, two-bit cult leader. So basically, Pete got in trouble for spreading misinformation again, which actually comes as a little bit of a surprise. As you see, over the past little while, especially since the Facebook ban, Pete has been playing it very safe on Instagram. Yes. He actually really seems to quite like his Instagram, and he's probably quite sad about this going. So he's been playing it really safe. And while on his Telegram chat, it's a cesspool of conspiracy theories, transphobic commentary, and blatant disinformation, his Insta was mostly just salads, crap about his podcast, and wildly out-of-context headlines from mainstream media articles, basically spreading anti-vax propaganda. It's such bullshit. Just like the one about South Africa. Anyway, no, that's for another.
Yeah, I know.
I thought this ban was never going to happen, though, because he was playing it really safe. I was this weird sort of thing of like, Pete, are you smart now? Like, are you actually savvy?
It's come as a real blow. It's a real blow.
Well, if you know Pete, you know he can't fucking help himself. So now his final mainstream platform is gone. His Parler account has about 14 people following and no Parlies because Parler sucks and no one cares about it. They're about to try and they're trying desperately to get him to join Gab, which is known as being a hotbed of extremist behaviour and basically where Nazis hang out. So I guess he'd feel pretty at home there.
Well, I'd feel comfortable there, yeah.
Yeah, get a bit of encouragement. The real history of Germany. These guys have read the history books. So that wasn't all, folks. We were graced with a rare public appearance by Pete to kick off his political campaign. And no better place to do it than the rally against mandatory COVID vaccination, which isn't mandatory.
Not mandatory.
There's no plan to make it so. It's not. It's not. So your rally doesn't exist. You've actually already won. Well done, guys. Pack it up. We beat it.
You're arguing over something that is not happening and is not going to happen.
It's frankly embarrassing. So, in a speech that has been described as bizarre, he mumbled through one of the most uninspiring 90-odd seconds of political speech in history.
It's unbelievably bad. Yeah,
so shit. And I'm not just saying this. It was really, really bad. This isn't just like, let's lampoon Pete. This was shit. I was expecting so much more. I'm actually a little bit disappointed in him. Like I was like, disappointed dad.
It was a really piss-weak effort. Yeah.
So bad. So, before and after him, we had firebrand idiots yelling complete nonsense and misinformation there and being met with screams and applause. And Pete just sort of came out without any shoes on, did this elevator pitch, bumbled through a few half-baked thoughts, and then just left. It was shit. The biggest cheers he got was essentially the start and the finish, the easy ones. And he claimed that he was invited to be a New South Wales senator.
He's been invited.
Just a casual invite in the mail.
What did he get it on an email, or will they send a car around? What happens there when you're invited to become a New South Wales senator?
Like a subpoena. If someone delivers it to you. That's really nice. He really
doesn't understand politics, does he?
No. So he may need to get elected first unless something changes dramatically.
And have to be elected first, yes.
You think so? But he's a bit of a fascist, so you never know. Maybe things have changed. But he says he's going to speak the truth, which is actually his truth, because apparently everyone has their own truth, which is lovely. And then he claims he doesn't have the answers.
He doesn't have any answers. He doesn't have any answers.
the next bit, he knows fuck all about politics, but will do his darndest best when he's there.
It's an extraordinary political pitch, isn't it? I don't have any answers, and I really don't know what I'm doing here.
Yes, but I'll try.
But I'll try and turn up.
And they're like,
look, if you get me maybe 30% of the time, I'll be absent maybe 70%.
Probably for the best.
I promise I'll turn up a bit.
The less time he spends in Canberra, the fucking better. So he's super confident he's going to get in, and I think he really does believe that he's going to get up. Like, he does this reluctantly, though, because apparently he begged people to do this instead of him, which is just complete horseshit.
And destiny has been thrust upon him. Yeah,
exactly. It's like Bitcoin. It's like Parliament has called him, and it's a law of attraction thing.
They've invited him.
Yeah, exactly. He's been invited. And then, like, when he does lose, like, it's going to be like some sort of corruption thing. Oh, there's electoral fraud. Dominion were counting the votes.
He's going to... That's not going to work. But, yes, it's just a lovely sales pitch. I don't have any answers. And I'm not very good at politics.
So he takes this weird handbrake turn and gets like the biggest cheer, actually, when he says that the media is bad.
They're terrible.
So bad. The media. Oh, they are the worst. So that was really insightful. And as a part of the media, he's actually was on a cooking show on Channel 7. Apparently for 2 decades. I don't know how long his run was, but God,
that's
2 decades?
Where he got all his money from. The media.
Yeah.
I mean, that's and without
they
that,
bankrolled him.
He'd be dodging his creditors in one of his various unsuccessful restaurants.
Yes, he would be basically making pizzas at fucking Domino's. But he claims that he tried to get the media, the powerful media, which is what, like, the producers of his cooking show, to do the right thing, which is textbook vague language from Pete. What's the right thing, Pete? Nightly updates on Q drops in the news?
He doesn't have any answers.
He doesn't have any answers. Maybe a public health announcement section from RFK Jr., a daily update on which vaccines are fucking killing us. So I just shudder to think what the right thing the media should do in his head. And just like the fact that he had to Google neo-Nazis, I think he might just be making this up as he goes.
Yeah,
so
get that feeling.
He also tied his campaign to Indigenous affairs.
Oh, my God.
Claiming he met with elders in some sort of thing and that they have the key to our future. Nice and vague. He called them the tribal people, which, I don't know, is that PC? But what it sounds like is a nod to the OSTF, the Original Sovereign Tribal Federation, which is essentially a subset group run by a bloke named Mark McMurtry, who is aligned with the GAP because they're both subset groups. And Pete is about to make the OSTF all about him because that's what he does.
You might think Indigenous affairs policy is a bit of a disaster, but I guarantee you it could get a lot worse very, very quickly if Pete Evans ever had any sort of involvement in it. But yes, just please stay away from that, Pete. I mean, it's just something that, you really shouldn't be going anywhere near.
Yeah, it's just, look, you don't have the answers. Just fucking leave it.
He doesn't have any answers.
It's just no point. So in wrapping it up, he claims he's a big fan of modern medicine, which felt like a total sellout moment. You're at a fucking anti-vax rally. No one wants to hear that. Yeah. It's meant to be like a vox pop that like it's carried by the mainstream media. They're not leading with that. They're leading with the fact that you don't have answers and you suck at speaking. So
I'm and I don't have any answers.
Yeah, but I love modern medicine. Do you, champion? It seems like you don't. So, but he also said that he loves ancient wisdom and natural therapies. Cool. Same. Great. So the thing is, Pete, nobody actually gives a fuck about this because you're not going into Parliament to just instantly become the health minister. If you got up, and you won't, people are going to avoid you as much as possible, give you as few responsibilities as they possibly can. You're just dangerous and annoying.
Even if he does accept the invitation, and there's a seat made nice and tidy, they probably steam cleaned it, and made it available to him in the Senate. Yes, it's bound that they'll keep his load on policy fairly light.
Yes, I would imagine so, because he doesn't have the answers. And he wasn't even the headliner of the event.
He is admitted publicly now that he doesn't have any answers.
What a fucking train wreck.
And you have been listening to the Conditional Release program with your hosts, Jack the Insider and Joel Hill. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. And if you've enjoyed our bullshit, throw us a 5-star review on your podcast app.
Jack can be found on Twitter on @JackTheInsider and Joel on @CrunchyMoses with a K. We've set up a Facebook page you can find fairly easily, but This is the call to action. We've been doing this recently because we are desperate for more ears. Promoting a podcast is easier said than done. Whenever you post your podcast on a page, people think you're just a twat. It's just a thing. Like, it's just shameless self-promotion covered in so much shame. Do it for us.
Yes, please.
Share our episodes. If you see a thread that is screaming for a soft sit link, just chuck a link in there. Chuck it in the comments.
And finally, all feedback, tips and death threats should be sent to the conditional release program at gmail.com. We would love to hear from you, even if you're just trying to invite us to a party, the best party ever. No, we can't tell you why or what it's about, but please turn up. It'll be great. Please come.
Bring your checkbook. Thanks, listeners.
See you next week.